Hello, hello, and welcome to Hygiene Elevated Conversations and Innovations. Today we are joined by Heather Wong, and Heather has a pretty fun story that we're going to talk about. Heather, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Heather, this is your first podcast that you've ever been on, which I'm excited for. And I'm excited to hear your story. So, let's kind of dive in. I would love to know how you got into dentistry, how you got into dental hygiene, and kind of what led you to the journey of working for the company you work for now.
Yeah. So I got into my journey with dental hygiene at a young age. Basically, in high school, I was a very smiley person. My nickname was Smiley on the different sports teams. And so I cared about my teeth because it was like my nickname. So I had to keep up my oral hygiene. And so I think I just became obsessed with it. You go through ortho, all of those different things as well. So then I wanted to pursue that career, but I was kind of influenced to go to a Christian school instead of looking more at, what would be good actually for a career I wanted to go to, which, we all have regrets and things that we've done. So I went to this school and realized it wasn't the best choice. And so then I transferred to a state school and I went to Indiana University. So it did take me 5 years to complete my degree, but I got an associate's and a bachelor's degree in that time. So it all worked out. But yeah, so I really got into the profession, I think, because people were complimenting my smile and it became very important to me. And then learning about the health of how your oral hygiene affects your whole body. I think I maybe would have went into nursing, but again, I just kind of became obsessed with my teeth.
That's okay. There's a lot to unpack there. First off, it took me 6 years to do my degree, so don't feel bad. It is a bachelor's, so you're not alone in that. So congratulations. I think it's interesting you bring up your nickname kind of started to define your career path, and you didn't even realize it at the time. I think there's a whole other topic that we could have there about how words are powerful and what we associate ourselves with can really have a huge impact on somebody. So that's a lot to think of there. So interesting that it was at least a positive thing for you and you leaned into it, and this has led you down a whole path. So tell me a little bit about how you first started your hygiene journey after graduation.
Yeah, so basically, I am one of those people that took multiple state boards. I started in Indiana and then I moved to California and they had their own board here. So, yeah, I took the multiple boards and then I started practicing for my first 5 years. We recommend this to no one. I practiced 6 days a week clinically.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it was a lot, but I did learn a lot. Yeah. Now
How
I shake
long
my
did
head at
you do
myself.
that? Yeah, I know. Now I'm like, no, wait, four and I'm out. How long did you practice six
Yeah.
days?
Oh, so I only did that my first 5 years after graduating.
Only,
And I
only.
think, yeah, I know, right? Now it's like, seems so long, but I'm getting older. So 5 years doesn't seem so long anymore.
Gosh, that's no, that's a long time. Wow. And you didn't burn
It
out.
I did. So I burnt
Okay.
out, and the way that I burnt out was like, how do I want to further my career? And so I started doing my master's in teaching at Pasadena Community College. So it was it's a lot on your body. It's a lot, um, and we all know that to do clinical 6 days a week. So my way that I burnt out, I did not stop, but I thought to myself, how do I want to redirect my career? So then I went down to 4 days a week and I started teaching at Pasadena Community College and doing my master's kind of all simultaneously.
Oh my gosh. You say that like, oh, and I practiced 4 days a week and I was getting my master's and I was teaching. Like, how many days of the week are there to you? Because for us, it's 7. So that's a
I
lot.
look at, yeah, we all think we're not doing enough, but in reality, I think we all are a little bit overachievers inside. And so one of my points today is, yeah, we do have to give ourselves more grace because we are doing a lot. And especially if you have that passion that, you want to drive our profession.
Oh my gosh. Yes, there
Yeah.
there is, I think, that tendency of like, I think there's two opposite ends to that, right? I think there's hygienists that they're not engaged. This is a job, 9 to 5, clock out, and don't want to do anything extra. And I think I was that hygienist for a number of years, which kind of led to my disenchantment. I wasn't burnt out, but I was just like, is this all there is to it? So I think you and I dealt with it in a healthy way. We got more engaged in our
Mhm.
profession. But I also kind of feel I'm at that same like, I think I'm doing too many things, but I don't know how to back down at this point. So crazy. But
Yeah.
yes, having grace and learning to say no when we've slightly overextended ourselves is important. So, okay. So you were teaching at Pasadena Community College and getting your master's. What were your next steps after that?
Yeah, so then after my master's took a while. I did it through Idaho State University. At the time, Joanne Brindley, and some of you might know her, she was the director of the program and kind of now my mentor. She's been a past ADH, a president. Well, she now serves for research for them and for the International Dental Hygiene Federation too. So I felt like I really got some good mentors within my master's program, and it was an online program. So it was really nice because I got to connect with hygienists across different states. And you can go at kind of your own pace. And so it wasn't too overwhelming. So that's another way I kind of built it into some of the other things I was already doing. So I did that. I implemented some community service projects. And then during that time, I moved to Oregon. So then I got my Oregon license and started practicing up there. And I taught at Pacific University. I taught some didactics, some clinical, some online courses. And then I finished up my master's at that same time. And I started consulting for Tepe because I was recommending the product so much. I found such great results with the product, super simple but functional. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, how can I get more involved with your company? And I was buying products. I was working in a perio office. And then I just, again, fell in love. I started teaching at universities on Tepe or giving presentations for Tepe and attending some of their trade shows, being their exhibitor. So I did that for a couple years. And then I was working with Michelle Strange, and she had previously worked with Tepe. So I got to know her, and she kind of then mentored me a little bit too and taught me some different things. So I, in all, got to work clinically 12 years. And then I was offered a full time position with Tepe. And that was kind of at a time when Michelle decided, she wanted to do some of her own endeavors. And so they needed, someone more full time. And it was great. I got to step in and I had the experience as a dental hygienist, but I've learned so much from, I guess, a business marketing leadership management role that I didn't learn in school. So now I've been in this role for 5 years. So I guess that kind of sums up my hygiene career.
No, I love hearing so much of the origin stories for hygienists and the different paths that they were on. Again,
Mhm.
stepping back into when I was more in the there's only clinic, this is all there is, not knowing this whole other world existed of how hygienists can either practice or other ways that they can still work in the dental field, maybe not clinically. And I think there's a lot of hygienists out there that have interest in doing more clinically, or they're getting burned out, or maybe they're just incredibly smart and just specialized and need to be in that next step of their career. So I think it's interesting hearing you say you just had a passion for the project or the product, excuse me, and you reached out to the company. That's how you got into it. So how was it instantaneous for you after you made that connection that they brought you on? Can you elaborate a little bit more of what that relationship was like?
Sure, yeah. So, um, I mean, I kind of, I'll kind of step back maybe into this later too, but Jackie Sanders from RDH Magazine once asked me, "How did you get into this role?" The same question you're asking me. And I was like, "Oh, it was luck. I got passionate about a product and then it happened." But no, that's not true. When I go back and I step back and I look at the process of what happened, no, was developing skills along the way that fit the role. So by hearing in ADHA and then my local components, I was actually the treasurer for the Oregon Dental Hygiene Association. So for the state, I was the treasurer. So I was learning business practices. I was learning how to do invoices. I was learning, what a profit and loss was, how to do reports. So now looking back, I continuously took opportunities along the way to develop skills, and there was a lot of hard work. So I always look back to that first conversation I had 5 years ago when I first started, and I'm just like, it still is in my mind, obviously. And it's like, no, that's so not true. It wasn't just luck. It didn't just land in my lap. It took a lot of effort, and you had to have your master's. I had, gotten my master's. So I discredited myself a lot when I first got the role. But the way that it happened for me is they did need someone in the Pacific Northwest as a presence. And so my credibility basically matched also a geographic location that they needed. That part did match up. And then I also met a lot of the internal Tepe, folks as we went to trade shows, and then headquarters bought over Tepe. It was a private distributor. So it was kind of during that transition that I got hired full time. And again, it was because I built those relationships. I put in that effort, and I used to discredit myself, but it's because you care about something. So you give your full effort to the plan.
That I love kind of the essence of how you put that together. Because we do that. We discredit ourselves, or we can look at somebody else and say, how did she get that position? Like, what did she do? Or what were those steps? She's so lucky. And there's a lot of unacknowledged effort, even on your own part. You took the steps to get your degree, to further your education. I'm sure when you were taking that position as treasurer, you weren't thinking, oh, and one day this will look so good on a resume. You were building in those skill sets, like you said, and you didn't know how that was going to be used or what the fruit of that effort was going to become. So I think a lot of hygienists will look and say, yeah, but I'm not going to get paid for that. But what's the skill set and what is the value that you're going to be able to bring to the next thing by doing this thing? Even though, yeah, maybe I don't know if you got paid or not, but I know a lot of times you don't get paid for those roles. But I think there is so much value in those types of positions where, yes, you're learning a skill, you're networking, you're growing that network with people, and getting those relationships with companies and other hygienists along the way. So I think you absolutely nailed it. So would you say, what would you say your superpower was during this whole experience that you had?
Well, I don't know if my superpower was maybe part of that experience, but I found it out over the years. So I've always been told, hey, you get amused easily or you laugh a lot. I don't know. I just think things are funny. You can show me a picture of a cat with a hat. I don't know. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's hilarious. And so I used to always think, oh my gosh, like I need to be more serious so people take me professionally. Like I need to keep myself together. And I tried to like deny my own self and project something that wasn't me. And so I think your superpower often becomes your insecurity because that's where your strength really is, a lot of the time. So my insecurities, I looked at them and I'm like, oh, I think I'm too childish. I think I'm too amused easily. I smile too much. And then it's like, wait, no, actually, when I look back, I've I'm enough. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. And this part of me can actually bring something to a team dynamic. It doesn't mean that I'm not competent. It doesn't mean that I'm not professional. It's my personality and it's who I am. So I think my superpower for myself is just learning to accept myself, and that makes me a better team player because I'm not trying to fit into a role that's not me. So yeah, I think my strength throughout this whole story was I learned who I am, and that became my superpower.
No, that's an incredible lesson to learn.
Yeah.
I think you said it so perfectly. You weren't trying to fit into something that you weren't, but you allowed yourself to grow into that position in that space and really got to know who you were in that process, which is incredible lesson, which I think
And it
probably
takes
gave
time.
you, it does take time. But I think it gives you more confidence and assurance of like, yes, this is right. I don't feel like you don't have so much of the imposter when you kind of come into it in your own time.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, what would you say some other lessons were that you learned during all of this process?
I kind of already said, but give yourself grace. And I read the book Brene Brown called The Gifts of Imperfection, and it really hit me because she talks a lot about how we often oscillate between shame and perfection. And I feel like as hygienists, we do that a lot because, we really want to provide maybe the best service, or we're perfectionists. We want to make sure we get every piece of calculus off. That's what we're taught in school, or like it just becomes overwhelming for us. And that's how I graduated. I was a perfectionist. I wanted to do my chart note perfectly. I never wanted to miss anything. I wanted to communicate with my team. And then if I didn't do those things, then I dropped into shame. And it's like, who am I? I'm not doing good. And I like took on this burden. But I think over the years, I've learned to give myself grace. And that's kind of operating in between and letting yourself mess up and be okay. That's okay. Let's find a solution. How can I move forward? I don't have to let it immobilize me and make me fear the future. No, I can keep moving forward with making mistakes. And trust me, when you enter a role like I have with Tepe, I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm doing negotiations. I'm like learning, like I come in and they're like, oh, B2B sales, B2C. We have this campaign. We have the, I'm like, I don't know what these words are. What's your C2A? I'm like, I don't know. And so I've made mistakes along the way, trust me. But it's okay. Give yourself grace and just keep moving forward. So I would say that is a big lesson along the way I've learned.
Yeah. There's a lot. I know in the corporate space, even coming from private practice to DSO, yeah, they're throwing acronyms at me and I'm like, excuse me, I am just here to do my job. I don't know what the P&L is. Like that doesn't sound like anything I learned in school. Thank you. So
So you
yes,
work in a DSO now, and then you worked in private practice before. Okay.
yes, yeah, I would say 15 years ish of private practice and then DSO. So it's been a change.
Yeah.
Mostly positive, but there's give and take
Yep.
with each. So give and take with each. Okay, so you also have a lesson that you learned about perceptions
Yes.
within the corporate space. So share that one with us.
So I've learned, we've kind of already discussed this. I keep saying that because everything ties together. But we often let the perceptions of other people guide us, where I think that first we have to let go of that. And also we have to check ourselves. What perceptions are we placing on other people as well when we first meet them? So this happens to me a lot. I work with Tepe, and so I think I'll go up to, like, I know you've worked at different booths at exhibits as well. And I love it because we're like, oh, we're both hygienists, we can relate. But a lot of times you walk up and someone already has a perception, like, you work with Tepe, I'm not going to talk to you, and it feels bad because you're like, wait, no, I'm a dental hygienist. I'm trying to get a lot of different solutions for my patients. I want to learn still, and you're trying to almost prove yourself. So that's where it hit me. And then also Tina Clark, she's a friend that I've had in Oregon. She does a lot with anesthesia now. We talk about
love
Brene
Teacher
Brown
Tina.
together, and she was telling me, yes. Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. So yeah, we worked on a lot of advocacy together in Oregon and got some laws passed. So anyways, that's a side note. I like Tina too. But anyways, so perceptions, she said, I'm walking up to your booth right now at this trade show and you're talking, but I thought you made eye contact with me, but now you're still talking and it seems like you're ignoring me. Well, that was her perception. Or she could have thought, wow, she's really engaged in that conversation. And she is so interested in that person. That is so cool. Okay, so those are two different thoughts that could be running through her head. She ignored me, or look how engaged she is. So I think we often do that. Like, we walk up to a scenario and we have two different truths in our head. So I think we just always need to step back and just look at the bigger picture and not let those perceptions again guide us all the time.
That sounds 100% correct. I think I think on the same thread of perceptions is I have a really bad tendency to assume everybody is thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And that is not the case at all, because we all have such different experiences. We do have different perceptions. We have such different backgrounds. Somebody might be thinking a similar thing to me, but they're not going to be thinking the exact same thing. And I tend to assume way too many things. And I think the same thing can happen with those perceptions. Like, I can be doing something, yes, at the trade show, and I'm like engaged and having a good time, and somebody could come up and I don't get to talk to them, and they're just like, she was so rude. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm nice. I want to talk to you. I want to engage and give you free stuff. But perception is reality, right? That's the unfortunate side. If you have a bad experience with somebody, oh my gosh, that can be really, really rough. And yeah, create I don't want to say a negative connotation towards your reputation without you earning it, maybe.
I know, but then that's where I think we still just are true to ourselves. Someone can believe again what they want, but that's not your truth. And I think what this does is it makes us step back and keep checking ourselves, because it happens to all of us, right? Like, I have to keep checking myself all the time.
Yes. Okay. What are the other lessons that you've learned?
So one other thing, well, this kind of has to do still with perceptions, but maybe moving into diversity too. But with perceptions too, I've realized with our patients, this is kind of taking it to a clinical level, is that we also can't project our perceptions onto them either. So if they're maybe having a hard time, maybe we can't expect them to do the best oral hygiene. Maybe they can't thread under their bridge and use a water flosser and use an interdental brush and use a toothbrush. Like, meet them where they're at, learn their story, and try to work with them. And so also perceptions, I say, are a story aspect. So for me, I know I've shared some of my dental hygiene story, but I've also, I lost my dad when I was a child to cancer. I was bullied. I gained a lot of weight because my mom worked and we moved to a frozen food, diet with a lot of preservatives. I've been robbed at gunpoint and tied up. And I tell you these things, they sound devastating, but the reason I'm saying is I think sharing our story is important. I was in an abusive relationship for 16 years and had to go to a support group for women and learn about what abuse is. I had to go to therapy. Okay, so now I'm telling you all these things. Your perception of me is changing. Who I am as a person is changing. The same thing happens with our patients. They open up their story, we start connecting. Some of you have been through these same circumstances. And you're like, oh, yeah, I get that. That happened to me too. And so it helps us connect with people. So I say get vulnerable, share your stories, but listen to your patients too, because it'll help you get a better perception of who they are. And then you can work with them better with where they're at, meeting them where they're at. And I will say after this time, now I've been able to speak at ADHA. I've been able to work with Tepe. Now I have an amazing husband with 2 daughters. Who would have thought like in your late 30s that could happen? So it is super crazy that I got some of these opportunities as well. But again, what is trauma-informed care? When we come back to it, it's having a complete picture of the patient situation. But I think this should happen with all of our patients because it helps us connect and deliver better oral hygiene, instruction and even care all around. So I know I kind of went backwards, but I just wanted to touch on that and make sure that with perceptions, we embrace the whole picture.
Heather, you just gave us a lot to unpack. Thank you for sharing and
I
being
know,
vulnerable
I'm sorry.
there. No, I hear resilience is a large character strength for you because that's a lot to overcome. And it sounds like you are at an amazing place in life. And you've worked. Like you haven't just sat around and waited for things to happen. You were really a proactive member of your own life, and creating a lot of those good opportunities that you did work for. And so I am happy for you and excited for you. And I think you're absolutely right. Meeting patients where they're at is critical. You're right. We can't just judge patients like, can you just pick up your toothbrush and brush it? What's going on there? Like, what other things are going on? Do they just not value their oral health? Do they not understand it? Or are there bigger things at play in their life where this is just not a priority right now? That we need to really just have some empathy and sympathy for them and just hear them out because, the world is not a naturally kind place. There are kind people in the world. And I would like to think the dental office, despite people's perceptions, we all know hygienists will sit there and hear your story for the hour that we get to spend with you. No other healthcare provider in our team of healthcare has that opportunity and really does that. Because when you're at the doctor, you're in and out of that not the waiting room, but of that operatory very quickly. But we get to sit there and hear the patients and really deep dive into their lives because a lot of times we're not just seeing the patient, we're seeing family members and getting to put those pictures together and understand them on a much deeper level. So I think that's a very valid point.
I mean, I love in other countries that they actually call them like a therapist because in a way you are helping the patient mentally as well get to a point. So it's like when you go to like say a mental health therapist, you're expecting them to like really work with you. How do I change my behavior? How do I get to this new place? And I think as dental hygienists, I hate when they approach me like, oh, I had a 1-hour appointment and I got done in 30 minutes. It's like, wait, but like, are you working with your patient? What's going on? And so I think just the whole perception thing, also approaching your appointment, with that therapy type of attitude. I love that.
I'm going to insert here for just a second. I'm in health coaching school with the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, and I going into it, I really wasn't sure about the coaching aspect of it. I assumed like, oh yes, this is going to continue my role as the expert in things. And it's kind of the exact opposite. Health coaching is not telling somebody what the right thing to do is, because I'm not an expert on your life, Heather. You are the expert on your life. So it's really tapping into character strengths and past successes that people have had and really helping them work through things and guide them in the right direction. And so trying to marry those two ideas of, if they're in the dental world, yeah, I'm going to guide you. I'm going to insert a little bit, but it really is guiding your client or your patient to successes and really start to take accountability for the things that they want to do and how you can help guide them in that direction without just saying, okay, you need to do A, B, and C and move on. Like that's not successful, right? Because otherwise everybody would be brushing and flossing at this point in our lives. But that's not the case. It's really like, okay, is there a time that you were more successful? Is there a time that you felt good about, in the case of oral hygiene, that you did have a good regimen? What did that look like? How did that feel for you? And then just kind of continuing on in that. So I've learned a lot, and it wasn't what I thought I would learn, I think in a good way.
Yeah.
But I've noticed I have very different conversations with my patients now, especially new patients. I'm like, how can I help you with your oral care? Like, how can I help you achieve your goals? And they're just like, I don't know. There's some patients that just like, they don't know what to say to that because they've never thought about it. And then there's other patients that are like, well, I've been concerned about this and this, and I just didn't know how to word it. So it's kind of been interesting to just open up the dialogue a little bit more than like, you're in the dental office, you're going to get x-rays, you're going to get an exam and a cleaning of some sort. But really kind of creating an even next step of care. But I think, to your point, we do sometimes need to step back and realize we're not always the expert. We know how to clean teeth. We know how a patient should clean their teeth and how to remove that biofilm at home. But the patient is the expert on their life, and they know their life better than we do and what's going to work better for them. But it's got to be a team.
And I love that you said, yeah, they're not expecting it. So like, how fun is that as the dental hygienist or, any dental professional? Doctors can do this as well, stepping in and asking these questions because it really makes them think. And I love that you said, they're a little surprised. They're like, well, how do I answer that?
Yeah. So, okay, we talked about some diversity as well, thinking in different ways. So what about the assertiveness and not aggression? Yeah. How does that play into what you've learned in your journey?
I think, again, we bring our personal experience with it. And for some reason, I always thought I had to be the nice person. And I thought that meant you don't create boundaries. And so I think when I say assertiveness is not aggression, creating boundaries and being vocal about your own needs is not being aggressive or being mean towards someone. That's protecting yourself. It's treating yourself well. And you actually are going to be able to go further. Kind of bringing the diversity back into it. This is a quote I love. One of my coworkers shared it with me. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. But to go together, again, we have to work as a team. We have to know our boundaries. We have to know how to support each other. And when you have that diversity, you're all working together, you're creating those boundaries, you're being upfront with your own needs. Sometimes you say no, then you actually are going to push farther because you're working cohesively and respecting each other. And one story that resonates with me with the assertiveness is I remember when I was first hired in Southern California, I knew the law, but then some of the intricacies when you first get started, you're like, oh, is that just a California thing? I didn't go to school here. And we were taught how to remove sutures, but he was telling me I needed to place a suture. And so he showed me what this he did a suture on the lower right, and he did it, and then he put it up into the contact, and then he tied it, and he was like, did you see how I did that? And I'm like, yeah, not thinking he was going to ask me to then place the next suture. And I was like, okay. And so then I sat there, and I never really did it because I was so nervous. I didn't feel qualified. So then I got up and I talked to him about it. But it was so hard for me to say no. And I just remember that moment. And so it triggered this whole cascade throughout my career of realizing, if I feel uncomfortable or if I feel confused, don't ignore it. Whatever setting I'm in, personal, in office, corporate position, don't ignore those. Try to delve into them and understand why you're feeling that way. And then actually have a conversation about it. Create maybe a boundary with that, or question it, because you'll actually, get farther.
Yes. So at Hygiene Elevated, our podcast started out with Joffrey and myself. And we've had a ton of fun the last 2 years. And just with growth, we knew we can't do all of this by ourselves. And so we added in 2 other team members. And it's been a challenge. It's been phenomenal, but it's a challenge because not only is it more than just 2 people now, we're having to coordinate 4 people's schedules. And we are in such different time zones. So Joffrey and I are here in Utah. Nicole is in Colorado, so no difference there. But then Olivia's in Turkey. So we've got a completely different day and time that she's available. And we love Olivia. We love Nicole. It's been so amazing. The different spaces that all of us are in, and the different backgrounds that we have. But yes, there's 4 of us. So trying to create boundaries, but work together is a new challenge for us, for sure. And we are all so excited. We'll finally get to come together. We haven't been physically together ever. So under one roof this year, we will get to all hang out in Dallas. So we're excited for that. But that's such an important lesson to learn. The boundaries. We talk about boundaries and saying no. And there's times where that pressure is real, especially when it's clinic or it's your boss. It's the person that signs your paycheck. You're just like, wait. So having that instant internal fortitude, you've answered the question before the situation arose of no, I'm not going to do something I don't feel comfortable doing, is powerful and very enabling. When you say no for the first time is very powerful, but it's hard.
Yes. And I remember too, when I went through my abused women's course, that was one of the biggest lessons they taught us. If you feel confused, or again, you feel uncomfortable, question that. That's something inside of you telling you something's not right. So your body speaks to you. So that is a big key, in your own self-awareness too. And just, getting curious about that and trying to delve in and explore it. Maybe you might be wrong too in some circumstances, but at least it's letting you explore, why are you feeling that?
Very true. Very true. Okay, you mentioned curiosity, and we know that is such a huge part of not just our field, but staying engaged in our field. So talk a little bit more about the curiosity aspect of your experience.
Yeah, the reason why I say get curious is because that is my 6th lesson I've learned, is because you can't always think you're right about everything. And you don't know everything. Sure? You only know what you know. And the more you know, I think the more you realize you don't know. Yes. And so I think it's so important to remember that early on, especially, is to continually get curious. And every situation, there might not be one complete truth. You have to realize, again, people have different perceptions, experiences. There can be 2 simultaneous truths. and you can see how to work with those together. You don't have to prove somebody right. It's more looking at, okay, let's come together and now look at how can we move forward. What's real for you is real. What's real for me is real. But let's move forward with this. And then even within our profession, there's new literature all the time being produced. Don't die on a hill of, no, this is what I've been taught. This is what I know. No, get curious. Why? Let's see what else is out there. So that's what I mean.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Okay, I'm going to use this example. I work with a fairly new grad doctor. He is my favorite person. I love him to death. We strongly agree about some things, and then we very strongly disagree about other things. But we can very healthily disagree and still respect each other. Like he will come in and talk to patients about flossing, and I'm like, this is not appropriate. Flossing is not appropriate for this patient. Like there are times and places that yes, but he is still gold standard is flossing. And I'm like, it's not always. And like you said, there is more and more research coming out showing it's not doing everything that we are hoping it's doing, and that we've been praising it and setting it for this expectation and creating all of this mental stress for our patients. It's just not. Do I still think people need to clean interproximally? Absolutely. But we know flossing isn't always going to be the best tool of choice for patients. And so I get creative and I explore all options. Again, I sit down with the patient and like, okay, what is stopping you from flossing? Sometimes it's just the type of floss, and I'll do a floss fitting with my patients. Other times it's going to be maneuverability. They hate putting their fingers in the mouth. So yeah, we're going to explore a whole bunch of other options going from there. But sitting down and having that conversation, again, patients are far more well-versed on what's going to fit into their life than I am. I know the solutions, but they have to tell me what the problems are. So creating that that synergy and that relationship between the two of us. So, but yes, you're right. Just because he disagrees with me on certain things and certain decisions that I'll make about recommendations for patients, like for every paper you have saying yes, I have a paper saying no. So who's wrong here? It's all about what the patient is going to implement and be able to have results with, right? Like sometimes I'm going to be wrong and he's going to be right, and I'm going to hate every second of it. But at the end of the day, if the patient is getting benefit, that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, evidence-based dentistry looks at your clinical expertise. It looks at our patients' preferences, and it, of course, does look at research as well. So when you have all those synergies, you might come up with two different options.
Absolutely. Two or more. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Heather. Well, I am going to ask you our last two signature questions, and then I'll kind of give you the floor to say any final thoughts you have. But one of the questions that we love asking people is, what piece of advice do you wish you could go back and give yourself as a new grad?
I mean, I've said a lot of advice here today and a lot of things that have kind of stuck around, but maybe one piece of advice from when I first started. I think it would be really, it's kind of the superpower one, but get to know yourself, because I think that's what's going to sustain you throughout your career and make you match into the setting where you want to, deliver your expertise. So I would say get to know yourself and not try to match what you think you should be.
I agree. Even if that means turning down a position at an office or a job that you think would be amazing, it's not always the fairy tale that you're imagining. Okay, second question. What do you wish you would have learned in school that took you years to learn as an RDH?
We always want to step back, and I'm trying to think, because you learn so much, especially in my position. I've had the opportunity to go to so many trade shows. My team at Tepe, we're from multiple different countries and we get to collaborate. So I have all this input that I didn't get in school. But one thing that I didn't learn in school might be, and I'm biased because this is, part of my education after school as well. But I would say the importance of patient care when it comes to oral hygiene instruction, because at school, how it was delivered to me was a last item thing. My one office, we pre-made goodie bags, gave the same thing to each patient, had one standard protocol, and that's not how it is. So I think we think of it as an afterthought, when really I like how GBT even puts, the disclosing and the motivation more towards the beginning of the appointment, because really it's not an afterthought. It needs to be integrated into the whole thing. And that's where you're going to see results. And it's such a rewarding profession when you really work with your patients, because you feel like you're making a difference. So I would say highlighting that aspect of the appointment would be key and not an afterthought.
I love that. I am with you. I feel energized and more motivated when I've had an aha moment with a patient, or I see that they're excited about something, not just getting a free something, but this made a difference. Or when that patient comes back at their next hygiene recall and they're like, I loved that brush you gave me. It made such a difference. And you get to see the difference. That's the dream, right? It's exciting getting to know that you're making a difference in your patients' lives.
I'm there with you. I love it.
All right, Heather. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I kind of will give you just a closing thought. Anything that you would like to share with our listeners, where they can find you if they want to know more from you?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on your podcast today. Appreciated it. And I would just say, when you think of a corporate dental hygienist, I am working more for a company, not like a corporate clinical. So my role is a corporate educator. So I think we always think of sales, but just trying to get our mind outside of that box too. That is not part of my role. I work with consultants, trade shows, KOLs. I get to create content, blogs, webinars, and I think that sometimes we limit what corporate means. So just know that inside of those roles, there's so much opportunity, and it's rewarding to instruct an individual patient, but it's rewarding in a different way in a corporate position, because you're educating other dental professionals that then in turn get to educate their patients. And I have loved the role. There's obviously always going to be cons to everything. I believe it's a little more stressful than clinical, because you can't leave it at work. You're always thinking about it and always thinking about the next step. Or traveling with a family has been tough. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old right now, so it is not easy. So I just want to say, yeah, with the corporate dentistry, there's pros and cons. But if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to me, because I absolutely love the opportunity I've been given. So if you have questions, again, please don't hesitate to reach out, because I have loved working with Tepe. Not that every corporation's the same, but I feel valued and I get to progress ideas in a different way.
I love that.
So that's it.
Heather, that was inspirational and insightful. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you at the next conference that I'm at.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda.